Hey, it's Money Maverick time, and we got a pretty special guest, Michael Farr. OMG, we just spent the last 10 minutes talking about some of the stories we have from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Michael, it is great to have you on the show. Couldn't have been a more perfect guest today. His nickname, I believe in the Air Force or wherever is Slow Money. Michael runs money for rich people who really don't want to lose money, number one. Number two, they'd really like to get richer. But number three, what they really don't want is to wake up one day and see that their portfolio is down 35% in a day. And they're too far away from Michael to come shoot him in the head.
We hope that's aspirational.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I come, again, if you've been following our show or follow me on Change Wave or Transformative Research, we're the completely 100% different. I mean, I still have my pets.com pet from 1999 up on my office wall. We try to identify, rapidly transformational changes in companies or in industries or technologies. We try to find the leaders and we ride those bad boys. And the one thing that I learned in the 90s, Michael, was that, with Steve Jobs, I did an interview with, and he had said that ChangeWave was the only people who got what he was doing because we built a network of about 2,500 subject matter experts. And all these guys and women were saying, dude, this freaking iPhone thing that they're, this is an interview in 2006 that they have is just going to change the world.
Right.
And so, my secretary, Robin Nepo, gets $20,000 from her dad who passed away. She puts it all in Apple the day of the interview. And I talked to her yesterday, and that has allowed her to buy a $3 million home and still have $4.5 million in our money management claim, which it all came back. Transformational change is what we do. You do slow money. Explain.
Okay, so you have a pets.com pet?
Yeah.
Okay. This is swear to God, on the wall above my desk is a buggy whip. Now, Toby, tell the audience why there's a buggy whip over my desk.
Well, because he's in the four-wheel buggy, and he's got a mule that he's riding.
When just before the automobile came into being, the investment wisdom of the day was, you can buy this carriage or you can buy that carriage, and I'm not sure which carriage company you like, but every carriage needs a buggy whip. And if you want to have a safe investment and make money slowly, you buy buggy whip manufacturers because nothing can go wrong. Now, it's still one of my favorite stories, and it's why I have a buggy whip over my wall, because no matter how reasonable an argument for an investment, you can still lose your ass if you don't keep up with the changes in the industry, which is why so many of us have followed Change Wave that are actually helping us stay aware so we don't get blindsided by the fact that nobody's going to have a buggy or nobody's going to drive a car anymore. They're all going to go into the next whatever the hell it is. And we've seen it in our careers when things absolutely just change in these dramatic ways, and you have to keep up.
Well, Michael, or all the years I did, businesses on Fox News, we would get the value guy in, and the value guy. I won't mention any names, but there's names that clearly. I can still remember December 2000, late 6, early 2007. I just get out of this meeting. I'm interviewing a senator from out of Louisiana, and he comes out and he's a white guy. He's about as white as you are as an Irish person. Okay.
Wow.
But he doesn't have the Scottish tinge like
Is his first name Bennett?
Very close.
And
he says, "Well, we just got the Secretary of the Treasury telling us that if we don't pass this bill that pumps, trillions of dollars into the banking system, on Monday, you're going to go to the ATM and you're not going to be able to get cash out." Okay. So I'm fixing to leave, and they come in and say, Mr. Smith, you can't tell anybody. And I said, I don't need to tell anybody. You just need to look at this face. Changes like that are outliers. That's thank God a unique situation.
Yeah.
But your point, which I love about slow money, is saying that I'm assuming that, I mean, in my money management business, we have people who I call them the Ken Fisher rejects. They have $500,000, but they don't want to just buy 12 stocks that everybody else has.
Yes.
And call that money management and pay 1.5% fee. And then, I have some family offices with $25, $30 million who are already wealthy. They want it to grow. They have trust for their kids, et cetera. That's much more slow money. But how do you describe slow money? That's my question.
For me, what we do is, first of all, wealth preservation, which is weird and it sounds boring, but we work for so many entrepreneurs who are these maverick types of people, mavericks, and you're actually a maverick. In my own slow money way, I started the company, I hired the people, I create. You know what I mean? It's a different type of being a maverick.
Different mentality. You're not checking in for the check. You're You're a fire starter, and you're in it for a good and bad.
So if you're that guy and you've got these young guys and young women who have created wealth and they've done these extraordinary things, and then they bring you their 10 million, their 20 million, their 50 million, their 150 million, and they're like, I want you to keep up and I want you to drive and I want you to do what Smith does. And I'm like, no. You, Mr. Entrepreneur, are what makes money. It's my job to preserve that money and grow it. And if I can get you a compounded return over the next 10 to 20 years of 8.5% through good and bad, you should kiss me on the mouth right now. And so will your children and grandchildren. And because I don't trade it and because I'm not whipping this stuff around, I'm going to be one of the most tax efficient, estate logical, defensive guys you're going to meet. So if you want to make sure that your wealth lasts long enough to go and become generational and grow and double and triple, let me do that. And you go keep doing that growth fancy thing that you do.
Yeah.
That kind of a balance that offers some solace to the folks in those families who aren't those hard charger drivers is good. And so a lot of the time, what we, I think, mostly earn our money on is keeping people from their worst selves. We keep them from making the stupid, impulsive, emotional decisions after the stock market goes down 5,000 points and everybody's biting their fingernails going, I can't take it anymore. I've got to sell.
Right.
No,
no truer words have ever been spoken, Michael. It's literally my experience also has been that it's not the 6 months of stocks going up 300% that made you the money. It's the 4 weeks where it went down, let's say 30%, and you couldn't take it anymore, and then you missed out the rebound because, or number one, and then number two, you just paid taxes on that, and you're in the highest tax bracket. So you paid state taxes, you paid federal taxes. So really, you just lost 50% of all the freaking money that you earned taking risk after risk after risk. Why on earth do you do that?
The Jimmy Stewart speech.
Jimmy Stewart?
Jimmy Stewart, and it's a wonderful life. He stood there and he said, do you think Potter's selling? Potter's not selling. Potter's buying. Do you think Warren Buffett's selling? Buffett's not selling. You're going to hear any day now when the market's really down. Warren Buffett just doubled his position in.
Sure. And
pick the name of it. Oh, Warren Buffett just stepped in and took over Salomon Brothers in the middle of the financial. Warren Buffett, and they asked him to do it. They begged him to come in and take up. I mean, please, come on.
But wasn't it for like a penny? I mean, wasn't it to take over the liabilities?
Oh, it was worse than that. He took over the liabilities, and then he got paid like a 12 or 14% note for the money.
Note, right?
I mean, it was the sweetheart deal that mere mortals like us will never see.
No.
But
he has the patience of Job. He has the money of Zeus.
Yes.
And he is the quintessential. But again, if you go back to the book that his whole philosophy was built on, there's not a lot of people, Michael, I don't think, that have the constitution to do that. Do you have the constitution to watch the world go to shit and Just stay steady.
Yes. Evidence and history show that I do, but for some reason I always suspect it's easier for Buffett. I expect that he is not, doubled up over the toilet vomiting the way I am,
Right.
trying to get through that. I know what I should do, but I'm watching my accounts. I watch clients' accounts. Clients call and they get upset. 2007 and 2008. I'm going to tell you a story. I was talking to the CEO of a major, two of them actually, major Fortune 100 company, and I confessed. I said, I got to tell you guys something. In 2008, when the banking thing was going on, we got to a point towards the end of 2008. I went, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I went to my bank and I got $20,000 in cash, and I brought it home and I put it in my safe. And my wife thought I was crazy. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "This is getting dicey, and I don't want you to go to the grocery store and hear, Mrs. Farr, we're not taking credit cards today."
Right.
No, well, no checks. So at which point I said, that's how paranoid I am, guys. At which point the former chairman of a major automobile company that has 2 letters in its name looks at me and says, "Oh, I think you're kind of an optimist. I got 50 grand."
Yeah, right.
That's what he said. I took 50 out and put it in my safe.
Well,
He said, what the hell are you going to do with 20?
Yeah, I always felt it's a great story. I always felt that somehow if there was a training as we get, more sophisticated, if we could have people pre-experience a disaster, before you have to live it.
Would be great.
Because, this face just didn't happen. There was 2008, 2008.
I don't color my hair, Toby.
I know, that's true. No, my twin brother looks like Whitey Herzog. I am way too vain. I have a twin brother who's got a white beard, white hair. No, that's never going to happen. But if I could have taken a video every day from 6 months into 1999 and 6 months into 2000 and showed, just said how I felt and what I was feeling, it really would have, I think, be helpful to the next generation.
Yes.
Because it never, particularly when you didn't have a pot to piss in or a very small pot, and then all of a sudden that time, because of public companies that I'd backed, et cetera, all of a sudden I had $4 or $5 million. I didn't have the dollars. I had the certificates, and they were in the stock market, and they were in a shelter. But I had for a decent net worth.
It's hard to share those experiences, and it's really hard to persuade younger people who look at you or who look at me and where we are now, and to tell them, I was scared. I was genuinely scared. I was wondering how I was going to make a payroll at this one point. I had a letter. The SEC walked in to do their, surprise audit right in the middle of this whole thing. And I was, you try to explain to people that things weren't always rosy. They were scary. There were some dark days. There were some great wins and great celebrations, but there were some dark and long rides home in the car where I was talking to myself to stay a little bit positive before I went home to hug my kids, And it's hard to pass those along, but if you're listening to us and you're younger and you say, well, I like what those guys do. What we were able to do was survive those times, and we stayed with it, and we were consistent, and we stuck with our disciplines because our heads told us to, even when our hearts wanted to go the other way.
Yeah, it really, truly, we're going to wrap this black. We'll come on back. But ladies and gentlemen, I mean, you're talking to a guy who runs billions of dollars to people, and he does because they trust him. And at the end of the day, trust is the coin of the realm here in this business. We'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. I'm Veronica Dudo, and welcome to Buy,
Hold, Sell. If you have the Russians that are going into Ukraine, the Americans and the Germans and everyone else in Europe is going to say, hell no.
If Russia doing things, logically was their MO, I'd agree with you. Yeah, Todd, why don't you get him on a phone call right now? Hello.
All right, we're back with Money Mavericks. I am with Michael Farr, the esteemed Michael Farr, who, as an Irish person, has overcome those, issues to become a very successful money manager.
Well, actually, it's a day-by-day thing that we have to do to overcome,
Here's the thing, Michael.
Here's the thing, I'm struggling with it,
You're only as good as what you did yesterday, lad. You understand that?
And nobody can remember that, so.
And no one can.
So get over yourself, lad.
Yeah. You're beating me by only the 5 Irish jokes I know. All right, so let's talk a little serious here. Here we come into the last 24 months. The stock market, again, I don't know anything really now. I just talked to Monica on ChatGPT 4, and 10.5% since 1972. If you go back to 1957, 10.5, annualized with, big drawdowns, etc. But here we have, 20% back to back. In your world, for the way you see the world, does that mean that we've pulled a lot of this sentiment forward, that we've essentially discounted a lot of those future earnings, and the healthiest thing would be a pause? Or what? How do you see it? And I mean, what are you telling people to do with their money now? I have people up 120% in our growth stuff, and I'm saying, you know what? If you want to sell it, we'll take some off, but it's got to be a capital gain, because you just give them 50% back, and taxes count, and you know that better than anybody.
The markets go up and down, and that the market's going to go down is not a crisis. People get all upset about it. It's not a crisis. So did we borrow from future? We rode a lot of enthusiasm. We rode a lot of bullishness up. And to that point, what we saw was both an expansion in price to earnings multiples, and we saw actual increases in earnings in a very low rate environment. Mm-hmm. So when money's that cheap and there's a ton of it out there, it goes somewhere. When I give speeches, I'll say, listen, if I take $1 billion and shove it in a dead horse, I can get it to take a lap around the track, right? This is cause and effect stuff here. So there's a ton of money out there. The money hasn't come out of the system. The Fed is changing the price. In the past few weeks, when we've seen stock prices come down, I think it's really a result of, inflation maybe not be going away, and therefore the Fed's not going to continue to ease rates, and the market's having a tantrum because they want cheap money. Well, tough. You're not going to beat inflation by making money more available. This is really simple stuff, folks.
Right.
If I give you more money, what are you going to do with it? You're going to spend it. Duh. So
you're a monetarist. You're in my camp.
Well, I am, but I'm old fat. We always used to watch and we listen to Greenspan, and then you check M1 and M2.
Yes.
If there's cash out there, somebody's going to spend it. Look, you got an Atlantic Fed forecast, and I think they're always wildly off. The Atlanta Fed.
You mean the GDP now?
Yeah. It's all over the damn place. But okay, fine. Let's say they get it right this time. Let's say we're somewhere in the high 2s, maybe even pushing 3% GDP growth for 2025. That doesn't suck. If we got 3% GDP growth and you keep inflation modest, I can take that all day long, and you should see a continued expansion. There's nothing in those fundamental numbers that gets you to a 20% return. But you've just had 20% returns. Count your blessings, take a walk around the block. It's going to be, you'll get a little richer, a little slower probably this year, with probably a pullback. We haven't had one in a while. So if you haven't had one in a while, you're probably going to have one. Get over it.
Yeah,
it doesn't always go up.
I'm with you, brother. I tell our clients and subscribers, if you get your panties in a bunch because the stock market comes back to 10%, then you're not an investor. You're a trader. You're a trader.
You're a speculator.
You're a speculator. And if you have the time to do it, and you're one of the 2 out of 100 people that are good at it, mazel tov to you, darling. But for the other 98%, we select sectors, we select leaders of those sectors. We make an estimate of the earnings. If they continue to make it, those stocks are going to go up. But there's things outside the control of how great this company is that you can do nothing about. And the only way you know you're an investor is if you call me when the market does a correction like 2022 or, September through, October, and say, hey, Tob, let's put some more money to work. I want to build my position. That's the only way. If you're like, geez, well, first off, I don't need you. I mean, I've trained, I don't know, I've had 100,000 subscribers over the last 30 years. There's a lot of people who, still follow our protocol and our system, et cetera, because it works, but it doesn't work every day. And it requires somebody to have some spine, some backbone, some level of intelligence above a worm about how the stock market works. And then the litmus test is, hey, Toby, let's put more money in. We build up cash by taking some profits here. This thing's down 10%. We've owned NVIDIA for a very long time. It goes down to the 50-day, 100-day. We buy more of it for new people, et cetera.
Right.
Like
okay, you're setting me up here. I'm loving this. You're setting me up because if you're one of those people, this is great. If you're one of those people that calls me and goes, hey, Toby, it's going down, call me. That's what my firm does. I have people with CFPs who will sit there on the phone with you and hold your hand and say, no, what you need to do is stay invested, and we'll take a little less risky, a less volatile approach. I'm going to put 30 or 40% of your account in fixed income, and it's going to be a balanced, muted return, but you're going to sleep at night. When everything drops 20%, you're not gonna. So you want to live your life that way and sleep at night? Great. You want to do it Toby's way? Great. He's making money. He's making money. I really don't miss meals, folks. I don't. I still great.
I think you have a tapeworm. I mean, Michael, Jesus Christ! I've watched you for 25 years. You haven't gained a fucking pound.
It's not exactly true, but part of that's just getting screwed. Jeanette, I work out, I do all of this stuff. Yeah. I'm 6 feet tall. I weigh 170 pounds, but I've got this AFib thing, and the doctor tells me not to drink anymore, atrial fibrillation. And the AFib's completely under control, no problems. I don't go into it, but no booze. Oh, and your sugar levels, A1C, is borderline high, so we really don't want you to eat sugar. So I can't drink and I can't eat sugar, and I eat like a horse.
All right.
You just don't get. If you give up booze and sugar, it's amazing. You don't gain any weight.
I have no trouble giving up sugar. Anyway, so the bigger issue here is now we're into this new year. That's we used to have, as you were describing before, we had Tina. There is no alternative when bonds were paying 2%.
Right.
A blind chimpanzee with a note tied around its neck could buy stocks and make money. But now we're not in Tina. We're in higher for longer for all these sort of obvious reasons. And now we got to have, an idea, a plan to go through this. What we do is that we're about 40% in high yield bonds. That's sort of the barbell approach. And then our growth stuff, we do take, pieces off to reinvest, et cetera, to de-risk as we get into when you have NVIDIA up 320%, if you didn't get all your money out of it, you're a bonehead. Your original money. I mean, just simple stuff like that. This is not rocket science. But I'm with you now. Again, we run a couple of family offices, which is basically the directions is don't lose any money, Toby. Right. And that's a completely different world. And our subscribers are building wealth. And to me, the question always is, what's your risk tolerance? And your risk tolerance is not what comes out of your mouth. It's how your body reacts when you actually, wake up and the stock market's down 1,200%, 1,200 points.
Do you ever meet with the couples and when the husband starts sitting on the sofa in my office, the husband starts telling me how their risk tolerance, you always watch the wife and you look at her face, and then you'll know whether he's absolutely full of it or not, because she'll tell you whether she says it out loud or not.
Just the face.
Yeah. And by the way, in our business, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sorry if this sounds sexist, this is just my experience over 40 years. If you don't sell the wife, you don't make the sale.
Well, that goes for a lot of things, Michael. It's not just money, buddy. But no, I'm with you. I mean, particularly, again, for couples, usually there's a difference in risk tolerance, a little less testosterone on one side. and then patience.
Better decisions are made, by the way, with the two heads.
No question. No question. No, you know, running your own money. A lot of the people watch this, invest their own money. They run their own money. And I just try to say, you need to have expectations that are reasonable.
Yes.
You've just had you remember the market's 10.5% a year is the average. You've earned 20 years of stock market wealth in 2 years. Do you think it's time maybe to de-risk a little bit and go into bonds, particularly when bonds at this rate, when bonds rates ultimately go down, they'll go up in value? And oh, by the way, what happened if you just reinvest those dividends and buy more bonds at this high level? Now you're going to, 1 year, you're going to wake up and your bonds went up more than your stocks. Do you realize this, sir? I never run into anybody who actually realized that made more money with their bond portfolio than their stock portfolio.
No. And there were certainly years where you could do it. And maybe we're entering one of those phases again. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I think is going to be tough in the next couple of years is that President-elect Trump takes, it's tough to tell whether he's sort of posturing or whether he's actually putting forward policy. And sometimes his posturing, which can be very effective, I'm not being critical of President-elect Trump, just to be clear before people start sending me more hate mail. But it can be very upsetting to markets. I was sitting, we were getting ready to go on at CNBC for one of the lunchtime shows, and in the seconds where they're doing the countdown and the producers were waving his hands at us, he said, Trump just declared a 50% tariff on steel from Canada. And they got me on tape saying, he said, what? and the markets start dropping and we go live on the air. And immediately, Wapner comes over to me, he says, Farr, you seem to be taken aback by President Trump. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. 50% tax on steel. I mean, and it didn't happen, but I think we'll be more used to it. But I don't think we should expect to have seen the last of those maybe more enthusiastic.
We call that a WTF moment. But I'm with you on this. The famous saying, take Donald Trump seriously, not literally. Well, that pretty much, works. That. But now the overhang, we've had things so good.
Yes.
Which he hates to admit. We've had things so good. That the threats, now you start to get weary of the threats, and then if they don't happen, then you lose all credibility. So now it goes the reverse. Why didn't you do that? So he's getting a lot of people off, including me, sort of off center. I can't keep track of all the threats, et cetera, except that what I know from my insiders in DC is many people have taken him down to Mar-a-Lago. You got to fly in $2,000 a night, Farr. And they said, I don't care. We understand that the tariffs are a threat. But if you put a 40% tax on goods that come in from China immediately, a tariff, I want you to make sure, Mr. President, you understand that the company in China doesn't pay the tariff. The importer pays the tariff, and then he taxes that price onto the goods they sell to the wholesaler, and then the wholesaler sells that to the retailer, and therefore the customer is paying that. And if it makes for more manufacturing in the United States, well, that's great. But if you really want to not have an inflation problem, you can't really take goods and have the prices go up 40%. It just can't happen. And then I don't know what they say behind there, and I've been down there once, and it scared the hell out of me down there. But that's where I think investors are, and professional investors are just, give me a sign, because I don't know whether to take it seriously or literally. But if I was going to take it literally, then we would certainly have an inflation problem again. We would certainly have a market down 15 or 20%.
Yep.
And the only thing that makes me feel good, Michael, is that I know one thing for sure is he judges his presidency by how well the stock market does. That's the only thing I got left.
It's going to put a lot of pressure on Jay Powell. But really, to take your argument one step further, you have to think, folks, Walmart is not going to let its profit margin go to zero. Walmart is going to keep that price that they charge you above what they pay. If anybody thinks differently, I'm sorry, you're just wrong. I don't say that to viewers and listeners ever. Walmart's going to make a profit. They don't go broke. So only one person pays for it. And sooner or later, those people have to go vote. And that inflation, those higher prices, that's what inflation means. So we have to be very careful. And yes, he could be saber rattling, but when you start saber rattling after you've been up for a bunch of years here, and it seems like inflation might be under control, you better rattle it softly, pal.
Yeah, Michael, totally agree. I mean, it's not just that. It's tariffs for Canada, bringing goods into the United States, tariffs on Mexico, which only, $185 billion a month. We'll have to talk about it again, Michael, because you're now
and
my
leave
favorite.
Jay Powell alone.
Hey,
For God's
Jay Powell,
sakes, Mr. President, leave Jay Powell alone.
I know John from New York from the private equity business. That guy is way too nice to ever have been the freaking Federal Reserve Chairman. I still don't get it. But
I've been friends with him for 20 years. He's a nice guy. But look, the guy is a lawyer.
I know he's a lawyer.
He's got that boring side to him, okay?
Two hands, on this hand, on this hand.
I mean, come on. I mean,
all right.
But you're not going to get him to waffle. He doesn't do that emotional thing you were talking about clients doing. Jay Powell is steady morning, noon, and night. Trump's not going to get him, but hell, he's out.
And Jay Powell, we trust.
We do,
Michael,
indeed.
It's great to have you. We'll have you on again. I'm going to hit you up for that play Burning Tree, brother. I want to get out on that golf course. All right, listen.
I'd love you to do it.
Money Mavericks. Sometimes being a maverick is being a slow money maverick. They're not many.
Money, this is an honor to be on with you. It really is. So many years. This is awesome. Thank you.
All right, cheers, brother. All right, cheers and out. We'll see you next week.